Welcome to Fundraiser Success Series Module 4, and in this module we're going to talk about selling tickets, and that's probably the most important thing for your fundraiser. If you don't sell any tickets, then you're not going to make any money. But there's a caveat to that. If you don't market your ticket sales, you're also not going to sell any tickets. So how do we actually do that? Well, there's a couple of struggles that fundraisers fall or have with ticket sales, and that's sometimes that volunteers are unsure of how to actually sell tickets. Above that, sometimes tickets are hard to get. Some events just put them at the local pharmacy, and just because everybody in town visits the pharmacy doesn't mean that they know about your event. Sometimes the community is not actually excited about your event, and that's another huge issue, which falls under the marketing portion of your event. Sometimes tickets are priced way too high or just too low. Too high is usually not a huge problem, but too low means that you're not actually going to make any money, or people don't actually find value in what you are fundraising for or having your fundraiser with. And the other thing is that the last minute ticket sales scramble. If you're catering an event, you don't have that last minute time frame because the caterer wants to know for sure numbers at least a week ahead of time, sometimes a month ahead of time. So you got to be very careful with that. With ticket sales, you should be selling easy. I can't even talk today. You should be making selling easy. You provide each volunteer with a clear sales target. If you've got 20 people in your club, you should be asking them, hey, can you help me sell 10 tickets? And then they should be responsible for those tickets. We don't charge them for the people who don't show up, but you try to get them to sell 10 to 20 tickets each. Offer simple scripts. Hey, we're having an event. Would you like to come? It's $20 a head. Really simple. It's $40, but you also get a meal and entertainment. It's a fantastic deal. And encourage personal invitations. It's a lot easier for somebody to sell to someone they know. You need to use that like, know, and trust. And the other thing is you have to get the word out. You need to use posters, social media, email for that support. Pricing is really simple. You want to set the price that matches the event's value. I've worked some events where they've had as low as a $5 ticket, and that was the value they thought they were conveying. However, I've also worked some events where they've had $200 tickets, and that's the value that they thought they were conveying. So the one thing I want you to consider is that if you underprice, it lowers the perceived value. Your fundraiser should be at least worth what a sandwich is at Subway. And I don't know about your current Subway, but when I take my daughter there to buy a sandwich, it costs $15 at least. You can also do things like bundling tickets with perks. You can have reserved seating, VIP seating, a VIP experience. You can get a table that has pre-done drinks. Yeah, bottle service. Or maybe if they buy a certain number of tickets, they get a free raffle entry or something like that. Some of the things you can do is offer group packages to businesses where if they buy a full table, then they get a discount. Or you can have a family package. And family packages are super important because it gets a whole group of people out at the same time. You can also think about boosting those sales momentum of those ticket sales. You need to create urgency. Even if you're 2 months out, tell people there is limited seating for my fundraiser. You need to promote the community impact. What are these funds actually going to in your community? Yeah, just think about this. What's a better marketing tool? If you were a daycare fundraiser, what's a better marketing tool? A story of the daycare where you're showing what the daycare does for the community and why you're raising funds, or just a poster on the wall? There's a big difference there. And you can do that in a 15-second video with the daycare manager just stating, hey, I'm Beth. I run this daycare, and we make an impact in people's lives so they can go to work while we look after the kids and make sure their kids are safe. See what I mean? It's not really hard to show what your impact is. So do it, so people actually care. Another thing you can do is share milestones. And it says on the screen, it says share sales milestones. So when you sell the first 10 tickets, you should say the first 10 tickets are sold. The first 50 tickets, we've got 50 tickets sold, only 30 tickets remain. The first 150 tickets, oh, we've got 150 tickets sold, and we're sure to be a sellout with 200 people coming to the event that night. Share those milestones not only with the team, but they're a good promotional thing that creates more urgency with the people in your community. So share those updates, build excitement, and every little thing that you add to the event is another marketing opportunity. I'm going to use myself as an example with a hockey team fundraiser I did last year. So it was actually not a hockey team, it was like a rink, but they were raising money for the rink. So what they did is they brought me in for the Jesse Lewis Hypnosis Show. And then we started promoting that. So the Jesse Lewis Hypnosis Show is coming to town. And then what they did is they would get a sponsor for a silent auction. And every sponsor that took part in the silent auction, that's gave an item, they would do a video for them. So D&E Construction gave us this sweater for the silent auction. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring the event. And they would do a Facebook post with every single one. They had over 40 sponsors by the end of it because people saw the impact that this fundraiser was having for that rink. And everybody in town knew what was going on. They were thanking their sponsors. They were promoting the hypnosis show. They were promoting the supper. And then they decided to add a 50-50 on. Well, that was another promotional tool they could use. And they decided to open the 50-50 before the event even occurred. So you could actually go downtown to the local pharmacy, and they got a lottery license for this because that's required in some places. But they had the 50-50 where you went down to the local pharmacy and you could buy a 50-50 ticket there. You didn't even have to go to the event. And then the big draw on the night of the event, they said, well, tickets are only valid if you're in the building. And everybody knew this beforehand. But what happened is that 50-50 came up to $3,000 because of that. Pretty darn good, right? Which means they generated an extra $3,000 of fundraising material or fundraising money for themselves. It was fantastic. So, a couple key takeaways from this. Clear goals and simple tools make tickets much easier to sell. One thing we haven't talked about this is online ticket sales. And if you're doing online ticket sales, you know those promotional tools that I talked about, the silent auction, every post that they did, they also had an online retailer like Eventbrite that they would send people to buy tickets at. Whenever they posted about me being at the event, they would put the ticket link down below in the Facebook post. And think about that. In marketing, I'm going to assume you're not a marketer, but in marketing, the psychology of it is that somebody has to see your message at least 9 times. That's the number these days. It used to be 3 times, but somebody has to see your message at least 9 times before they take action. So if you're just putting a poster out there, you're not going to sell very many tickets because they're not seeing it again and again and again. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a campaign for your event so you actually sell out. That is actually the number one mistake I see event planners and fundraisers make, is they think that a poster is good enough, that a Facebook post is good enough. No, you should be having a promotional campaign the entire time that you are promoting this event to sell tickets. You got to remember that those clear goals, simple tools like online ticketing, make it way easier to sell tickets and therefore way easier to raise money. Fair pricing builds trust, it fills seats. So make sure that your pricing is fair for what you're doing. Those $100 fundraisers that I've done, usually what they have is they've spoken to WestJet or a local travel company, and there's a trip up for grabs. So people are coming specifically to try to get that trip at the end of the night that is part of the big draw. They're getting great value from that, and they're willing to gamble at $100 on tickets to see if they win. Momentum drives excitement and sales success. So that's what I'm talking about with the marketing. You need to market, and build that engagement, build that excitement, and build those sales. Really simple. In closing, thank you for watching Module 4. Next up, we're going to talk about sponsorships and free money that you should be getting that you're probably missing in your local area. See you there.